Good morning, everyone. Here's your weather hazard briefing for a Monday, February 13th. We've got a little bit of patchy fog and low cloudiness, mainly a little bit of patchy fog around this morning. That will go away by mid-morning. Our next storm moves in. That gives us some increasing wind and snow later today, and that will be from west to east across the area. Now, this snow and wind continues into Tuesday. We will have some areas with some blowing and drifting snow across the region, especially where we can keep temperatures a little colder. A lot of the snow that's on the ground in some areas has already crusted over, so a lot of the blowing or drifting would be from new snow that is falling based on some of the observations that we're seeing around the region. Then we have an Arctic cold front coming through. Temperatures midweek plummet. We'll have some wind chill issues, especially on Wednesday morning. Those will be some of the coldest wind chills, and likely seeing wind chills below minus 20 in some areas on that particular morning. Satellite this morning is already showing our wave moving in, the leading edge of some higher clouds moving through the Idaho Panhandle back into Washington and Oregon, and there's plenty more moisture off to the west and northwest that'll be moving into our area. Not much in the way impacts for today, maybe some minor impacts, especially from the wind across the Magic Valley and the South Hills later on today. There's a very brief period of light snow in the Magic Valley, a little bit of chance, especially in the higher elevations of the South Hills and the Albion Mountains, and a little bit of snow and wind, especially higher elevations of the Central Mountains. Some of the mid-slope areas could see some gusty winds and some light snow as well. That trend continues into tomorrow. I don't think we're going to see any light snow in the Magic Valley. There might be a couple of showers that drift up out of the highlands to the south. Otherwise, our biggest impacts on Tuesday will be across the South Hills, especially higher up where we get the snow and wind, and across the southeast highlands and the eastern highlands. In the eastern highlands, probably pretty important is that the Arctic air spills over. Some pretty strong winds coming across that may cause some travel impacts. In areas that we have snow and wind tomorrow, there'll be some travel impacts on the horizon. Then we switch into Wednesday, and those breezy winds and the dangerous wind chills, especially out across the portions of the Snake Plain into the southern and southeast highlands. We'll have some dangerously low wind chills, and also across portions of the Central Mountains. It'll be chilly again through midweek. The wind chills will not be as bad Thursday and Friday morning, but still in some areas running 0 to minus 20 below zero. And by Friday afternoon, maybe a little light snow moving into the Central Mountains. Not much with that wave. If we can get the snow to fall, will come with that particular system. So switching over to where we are going to be with our next storm coming in, you already see snow moving into western Idaho, moving into out of the Panhandle towards the Central Mountains. This is right around noon. Going into the afternoon, that band shifts off to the east. And you'll notice by evening, not much in the way of snow across the Magic Valley. Like we said, it appears once the snow clears the Magic Valley this evening, it'll be mainly a wind event down in that particular part of our area anyway. And then as we go into the overnight hours, we have snow continuing generally along and east of the I-15 corridor, especially from Pocatello northward. Another area of snow moving through western Idaho into southwestern Idaho. This is right around midnight. And that snow kind of breaks up, but that continues to move our direction. Our main concentration of snow for tonight and tomorrow will be along and east of I-15, and then as that wind comes over the divide with the Arctic front for tomorrow. That first area of snow, it sticks around, weakens a little bit during the morning hours, maybe a few other pockets of very light snow developing, but you'll notice into the afternoon, we start to see snow redeveloping off to our north and to the west, and that's with the main push of cold air coming in from across the Continental Divide. That snow drifts south and westward tomorrow night, and then it is out of our hair by the time we get to around midnight, early Wednesday morning across the region. So heading back to some more specifics on the forecast. There's that snow over Limhi County into the Central Mountains this afternoon. Not much to speak of at all. Maybe an inch or so in the highest elevations. Temperatures do remain cold. However, we start to warm up along the 84, 86 corridor above freezing, and even to the low to mid 40s once you get to Burley and Twin down towards Oakley and City of Rocks. Looking at only 20s across where we keep the inversion going in the Snake Plain, otherwise running about 25 to 35 degrees in some areas. That's for this afternoon. Now into this evening, that snow starts to spread across the region. Some of the higher elevations of the eastern highlands, inch or two there, inch or two down towards the South Hills. But you can see some areas an inch or two in the central mountains. We might see 2 to 4 in some of the highest peaks of the central mountains, especially across the Lost River Range into Limhi County. And you can see those pretty gusty winds already developing over the Treasure Valley, Magic Valley, heading into the Pocatello area. Some of those gusts will be in excess of 40 miles an hour, even a couple of pockets up on the higher elevations running around 50 plus miles per hour during this evening. So again, some issues with blowing and drifting snow are possible, especially where we get some pretty good crosswinds going on some of our roads. Now, for tonight, those winds do continue, and a lot more of those gusts, 40 to 50, 55 miles per hour. And again, across the South Hills, we might see some gusts briefly in excess of 60 miles per hour. That's much higher up, of course. And unfortunately, that's also along that corridor between the junction of 84, 86 down to Sweetser Summit in the Yale area there. So some pretty dangerous crosswinds through this evening in that area. So that's going to be a problem. But you'll notice the lack of snow in the lower elevations in that part of our forecast area. The threat of the snow over this evening and overnight shifts into the eastern highlands along and east of I-15. Generally an inch or two from basically Blackfoot northward across the Snake Plain, 2 to 4 in the Island Park area overnight, and some of the higher elevations along the benches from Blackfoot up towards Rexburg, also into the Bear River Range. We're talking, it looks like at this point, maybe some 3 to 6 inch amounts. Those 6 inch amounts will be pretty isolated, but those gusty winds will continue. So like we said, the winds expand and will be strongest later tonight into tomorrow morning across our area. They do start to wind down, but you'll notice up north, those winds are already starting to switch to the north. That's ahead in the main push of cold air. We've got our snow continuing, just light amounts, but again, the highest elevations down in the South Hills, a couple of inches of snow. The bench areas from Pocatello up towards Rexburg, about 1 to 3 inches. We might see an inch or two in some areas along the interstate corridor, and also in the Bear River Range, a couple of inches as well tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon, we start to see that snow with that northerly push coming in, starting to shift to the southwest. Still some gusty winds, 30 to 40 miles per hour across the Magic and Treasure Valleys. And some gusts, again, picking up around 30 to 40 miles an hour coming across the Continental Divide and also emptying out of the Central Mountains up towards Blue Dome, Lone Pine, and coming across Gilmore Summit for tomorrow afternoon. And those northerly winds really start picking up tomorrow evening with a very light snow continuing. But some of those gusts coming across the divide were running about 40 to 50 miles per hour through the evening hours tomorrow. Now, for going back to tomorrow afternoon, you see the colder air moving in. Really nobody getting above freezing. Maybe once you get over towards Shoshone and Jerome into the Treasure Valley, we're looking at low to mid 30s for afternoon highs for tomorrow across the area. Now, Wednesday morning, the cold air moves in the Magic Valley, into the Treasure Valley. We're still in the mid to upper teens. Elsewhere, we're in the single digits above to right around 10 below zero. And you can see these pretty gusty northerly winds. They're still not quite out of the north, due northeast coming into the Magic Valley. Still running about 25 to 35 out of the northwest, but elsewhere we've got 25, 35, 45 mile an hour gusts out of the north, and again strongest up around Spencer, up towards Island Park, as well as some of those gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour in those areas. That brings our wind chills into play for Wednesday morning. Some of these areas, we're talking probably 15 to 25 below zero in some areas, especially where we get up along the Montana border, some of the higher elevations of the Central Mountains. So again, we're looking at those wind chills being an issue. And this is actually probably at this point, I'd say we might be a little too warm on our wind chills for Wednesday morning. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And Wednesday afternoon, We don't see much of a warm up across the area, maybe a couple of degrees from Pocatello westward into the Magic and Treasure Valleys. Otherwise, still looking at 20s for afternoon highs during that period. Now, when Thursday morning, we're talking some lighter winds, but still some 10 to 20 mile an hour winds common across the area. Temperatures are running around the mid-teens in the Magic Valley. We're talking again anywhere from 0 to 10 above to 10 below across the rest of the area. And that brings in some of those wind chills. Some of those wind chills still, especially in our less populated areas, running about around 20 below zero for Thursday morning. And for Thursday afternoon, we start the slow warm-up. You can see where the inversion holds because of the colder start up north, only in the teens, the rest of the area in the 20s to low 30s, mid-30s once you get into the Magic and Treasure Valleys. And Friday morning, it's pretty much kind of a wash, rinse, and repeat situation across the area in terms of temperatures and wind chills. And not much of a temperature difference, maybe a degree or two warmer on Friday across the area. So once again, we got some patchy fog and low clouds this morning, snow and wind increasing. We are probably going to be contending with some pockets of blowing and drifting snow with this event coming through. And then another Arctic front, some cold temperatures, some pretty low wind chills, especially for Wednesday morning across the region. Have a great Monday and stay safe out there, everyone.